This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucie Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Have you ever sat around with your friends, maybe over a glass of wine, and dreamed about ditching your 9-to-5 corporate job and venturing out on your own? That's exactly what today's guests did. Donna and Cheryl were longtime friends when they quit their jobs and started Now Is Your Time, where they coach people on their journey to self-discovery to live their authentic lives. Hi, Donna and Cheryl.
Hello.
Ah,
That was the best intro
I know.
ever. Like, it made me excited. I want to be me.
I'm like, oh my God, who are those two women? I want to meet them.
That was amazing. I forget that we did that, Lucie. Thank you.
It was such a great story because I don't know how many times you sit around either with your spouse or friends and you're like, you come up with this big idea
Mm-hmm.
and that's all it is.
Absolutely.
It kind of flops out. So it's really cool to connect with other women that are just saying, screw it. You know, this is what we're doing and, you know, we're going to be us.
Yeah. Life is literally too short. And I think what's incredible about it is, I don't know if it's because of our story, but I do think we attract like. So we do attract a lot of women who come to us for coaching who actually don't even really know what they want. They just have this feeling that they want more. And one by one, they're leaving corporate and setting up their own businesses. So we might be starting like a whole revolution here, which would be amazing to see.
And it's funny because, you know, for myself as well, once you become aware of something, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And more and more I'm seeing, whether it's on social media or conversations with friends, I almost want to say that there's an awakening where, especially, you know, I can only speak as being a woman, but where women are suddenly questioning life. And I don't know if it has something to do with, you know, the generation that we were raised by. I mean, here in North America, we would say that we were raised by like the June Cleavers and the Mrs. Cunninghams of TV. I've tried to figure out what the UK version of that would be, but
Mrs. Cunningham, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We grew up with that. It's
I think it's called Generation X.
I don't know
I
what
think
we
we're
are
Generation X. And so basically, like, my daughter's 22. And I think, like, in that age group, I think they're Y or X. We're X and they're Y. Something to do with that.
Like that.
But basically, her generation, I think, like now, like 20 to 30-year-olds to us are like coming through, setting their own businesses up, feeling empowered to be entrepreneurs, like they're unstoppable. It feels like that's a very different generation to our generation, where our mums were still bringing the kids up. The men would go out to work, you know, the coal mines, like all of that stuff still went on for our parents. So that kind of fed through to how we were brought up, working class, being a working class background. The women raise the kids, the men go out to work. So it's taken until we're in our 40s to get to a point where we think, right, we're going to pursue our dreams and actually we're going to do what we want to do. Where I think now there's a newer wave of youngsters coming through where society, culturally, it seems to be more acceptable.
And encouraged. I think it's
for
a
sure.
different pressure as well, though. Like we had bridged the gap, didn't we? Where like some women our age, most women our age do work, but maybe feel guilty about having the career. Then you've got the next generation coming through where it's almost like if they don't want to set the world on fire and be a YouTube star and an Instagram star and have their own business, they're almost feeling guilty because they don't want to do all of that. Like, this is what girl power did, wasn't it? It's almost like the burn your bra and all the rest of it. And that's a lot of responsibility to carry around. I think as well, the whole COVID pandemic has a lot of people questioning, is this my life? Like, do I want to go back to that traveling in and out of work? Do I want to just earn money for somebody else forever? Do I want to, it's been lovely being at home with the kids and working from home. What would that look like if I had more of that? Don't get me wrong. Sometimes we're sitting thinking, when do the kids go back to school? Because that will be great too. But, you know, I think we are sitting, a lot of working mums who've not had the privilege before around being around the kids have had that, and they're worried about giving that up when things go back to normal, which I'm not sure that ever will happen in the same way as it was before. But I think that's definitely part of the awakening as well, is why do I have to give up one to have the other? Why can I not have both?
And also, you know, and this goes back to, you know, I've spoken about this before, about this checklist that somehow defined our lives up until this point, up until you start to decide or ask those important questions, you know, who made these rules? And it seems to be, you know, I don't want to, it's not that I'm blaming our parents or anything, because they did what they knew.
Mm-hmm.
And the world has changed so drastically since, you know, they were our age, that, you know, now we're at a point where we can ask these questions, and we don't have to fit into that past mold of what a woman, what a mother was.
Absolutely.
And now it's that chance for us to really ask, what is it that I want? Regardless of what anyone else thinks, what do I want?
Such a powerful question. And Cheryl says this all the time. Like, if you think about in the last 100 years, like as a race of just women, like our roles in society have changed so much since like the Second World War, you know, when we started going out and working and going out of the house and doing the things that the men until then have done. And the lid was kind of off then, and it's never gone back on. But within our DNA, like, we are fighting against thousands and thousands of years of just being at home and raising kids and being homemakers. And do you know what I mean? So we have all this guilt and everything. We've evolved past anything I think we could have ever dreamt of a few generations ago. The difficulty, I think, for us is that we still hang on to all the guilt of not being at home when we are at work. And when we're at work, you know, we're always wrestling with this DNA structure of being the homemakers, and we kind of feel guilty if we don't feel guilty sometimes. So we've still got a long way to go, right?
Like, as women, we tend to make sure that everybody else's needs is seen to before our own. So the family, the parents, the kids, work, like, we put other people's needs before our own because we've, as Donna said, because we feel guilty. We feel selfish if we put ourselves first. We, like, when Donna and I made the decision to set up our own businesses, we didn't involve our husbands in that decision. We just went to our husbands and said, by the way, we're setting up our own business, and they just had to go along with it.
You know that idea we had with wine the other night? Yeah, we've decided to do it. So
to be fair, there was no guilt there. But generally, as women, we like to make sure that everyone else is okay, and then we're at the back of the queue. And when we do put ourselves at the front of the queue, we don't see that as sensible. We see it as being selfish, which it isn't. It's sensible.
Yeah, it's true. So going back to when you just told your husbands you're doing this, because I know I've spoken to several women that are starting to, you know, gain their authentic voice and speak up rather than staying silent. And they're meeting resistance with their spouses or certain family members. How did that work out with you guys when you said, hey, this is what we're doing?
I mean, there was still resistance.
It went on for about a year. I would say not continuously. It's like, as you know, being a business owner, you go ups and downs, and it was the comments of, how long are you going to give it? You know, when are you going to then decide that enough is enough and get a proper job? And, you know, coaching, which is a saturated market, and coaches a 10 a penny. So this is coming from family members who don't know anything about coaching.
Yeah.
So luckily, Donna and I have each other, so that we've got a twosome, so we can support each other. And all I could really say to Graham was, I just had an inner knowing from setting up the business. in my being, in my intuition, that everything was going to work out. So even through the hard times, financially hard times, I said, no matter what you say to us, nothing's going to change.
And you guys,
Setting the business up and that's it.
and you guys did have your challenges, because I think it was on the broadcast that you did celebrating your 2nd anniversary.
Yeah.
You were talking about, I think you were coming up on your 1st year. It was Christmas time.
Christmas, the first Christmas. Because just for context for the guys, we, like you said, we had always had this, oh yeah, we'll work together one day. And then I was out of contract. I had finished a contract. I'd gone 6 months looking for a new one in the transformation business I was working in. Cheryl was made redundant. Her dad passed away. I have this epiphany of, hey, let's do it now. This is now is your time. But we had no backup plan, Lucie. Like, we were in the burn your boats, you know, like Napoleon Hill says, burn your boats. We did that before we spoke to the husbands. So we didn't have all of this money sat in the bank. We didn't have a business plan. We didn't have a clue what we were even going to talk to people about, other than we wanted people to find their authentic voice like we had. So that first Christmas, as you do, when you're misguided as a business owner, you spend more, you worry about your brand colours and your fonts and all that kind of, getting a website up and running, and somewhere along the line we'll get some clients. And we were getting clients who were being referred, which was amazing. So that first Christmas, we kind of spent any money we had in the bank, and obviously went and spent money on Christmas presents for people and stuff. And we were like, oh my God, like, this is real now. We've spent Christmases for so many years as women in really well-paid corporate jobs and never really worried about what we spent. And now this is real.
But at the time, what happened for me was I'd kind of run out of money. Then I'd borrowed money from my mum and dad to pay the mortgage for 3 months. And the money ran out in December. And it was my daughter's 21st birthday in December. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to take her to this really 5-star spa near where we lived. And then on the 14th of December, the tenant, because we have another property that we rent out, the tenant then said, we're moving out of the property. And I was just sat at the kitchen table in Donna's crying.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like, what's going to happen? But, had a moment, got okay, and everything is okay because we're still here. Like, come the January, things started to increase, but we had some rough times.
We did. Well, my husband, the business he worked in, just went bust, like, pretty much overnight. They went into work one day and it's like, doors are closing, we're not even giving you your salaries. And people were, that was Valentine's Day.
Yes.
We were like, and I remember sitting at HQ kitchen table at my house saying to Cheryl, oof, what else, and we always have this mantra of like, why is this happening for you? Why is this happening for you? And honestly, I still believe now that the universe will really test you whether or not you want this goal. This thing that you said that you want, if it's going to keep throwing you curveballs to see whether or not you're really committed to your desires, to your intuition. And we stayed the course. We were like, this is what we're going to do. And if we have to get a loan, and if we have to do this, and, we did say if we had to sell the house, hoping it would never happen. But it was, for us, there was no going back. We knew we burnt the boats, that we couldn't imagine. We loved our corporate jobs. Honestly, Lucie, we did. We loved leading people. We loved those organizations that we worked in the vast majority of the time. But once you sat in front of someone and you coach them and they have that moment of revelation, of they see their life and they see themselves and they see their beliefs crack wide open, for us, there was no going back after that. Like, we just literally, whenever we're in a session, we've had 2 this morning where you feel like you were born just to witness that moment. Every time it happens, it's really magnificent for us and humbling. So we just couldn't ever imagine doing anything else after
Once we realised we were really good at what we decided to do.
Thankfully, because actually being good at it hadn't occurred to us either.
No.
And that's the thing, is that we are tested. And, that's what I talked about when I recorded the episode with you, is that I'd made this transition in my life. I didn't call it burning the boat. It was, burning down the house. And we were talking before we went live, and I related that back to the Netflix series with Reese Witherspoon, was it Million Little Fires?
Yeah.
Or
something like
Fires
that.
Everywhere? I can
Little
never
fires
get it right.
everywhere.
Little
Something like
fires
that.
everywhere.
It's so good though, isn't it? Like it's
It
just
is. And, you know, I could really relate to the Reese Witherspoon character when she just had that pivotal moment when she realized that she had been making all of the decisions in her life
Yeah.
for everybody else, never yet really considering what she wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. And acting on from good faith on what she thought they wanted.
Yeah.
Because we feel so responsible for everybody's happiness. But sometimes, let's face it, we can be really misguided because we are always operating from our map of the world, as Cheryl would say, from an NLP perspective, from neuro-linguistic programming. You're always operating from your experiences, your conditioning, your trauma. So I'm seeing your life, Lucie, like through my eyes and my experience and thinking, God, that must be awful. That must be really hurtful. And you're like, oh, God, no, I've had 10,000 things worse than that, for example. So we can really project our experience. And this is the danger when, especially when we're parents and we want the best for our kids and we don't want them to be hurt or struggle with money or, you know, all the stuff that we maybe have gone through. We can sometimes in our haste to look after them, rescue them from that, rather than allowing them to go through those things and have those experiences that will build them into the fine people they'll turn out to be one day, the same as we did. And for me, Reese in that program did that so well. Of she's like, I don't get any thanks for it almost, isn't it? It's like, no, but nobody was asking you to do it.
Yeah.
But we think that that's our role. We had a coaching session this morning with who's like, oh my God, I'm still doing that. We're like, but it's what we do. It's in our DNA to build communities and hold them together. And sometimes we just can take it too far. And as you said right at the top too, it's we can get we just lose ourselves in that whole process. And actually we're making ourselves just as unhappy sometimes as the people around us who we're trying to fix, quote unquote. And when we stop and think about what we want, it's one of the scariest things in the world, because we've often never ever asked ourselves that question. You know, you grow up and you're doing what you want, you know, to keep your parents happy, and then you maybe get into relationships, and as women we're pleasers a lot of the time, so we're doing things to keep men happy or we're relationship happy, and then you become a parent, so then your focus is all on your child. And it is often when you get to our age, in our 40s now, where you go, actually, what do I want? What do I really, really want? And that's scary. We're wasting like half our life keeping everybody else happy and they didn't ask for it.
It is. Yeah, it is. But then, you know, you also have to take it back to what you brought up earlier about why am I going through this and what am I learning?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think if you're able to start to look at situations, you know, not why is this happening, but what am I learning? What am I going to get out of this? And I think once you look back over the course of your life and you have that perspective of, you know, what could have been a very negative point in your life, and that crisis moment I had in my parents' basement where I just, you know, it was scraping the bottom of shit barrel. Yeah. And, you know, you have two choices. You can either face down and drown or just look up at the possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. We say to people, like, think of if this were, even because we also do the thing of saying it's a bad experience or a good. It's if we just look at it and say it's just experience and the whole thing is part of life. And if this event or this situation or this person actually in front of me right now is my greatest teacher, is the biggest gift I've ever been given, what is it that it's trying to tell me? Like, what will I take from it? And just to remove yourself from being in it to observing it can be really powerful mentally and emotionally.
But using what you've just said there, Lucie, like that's how we built our business, based on our life lessons. So that's how we decided what it is we were going to do, because we sat, and once we decided we were going to set up a coaching business, we then went and looked at our own life and our own experiences and traumas and what we had learned from that. And actually that's how we decided what we were going to go out to the world and speak about to women, about not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, don't feel like we deserve whatever it is, and sharing our stories, our life lessons, just to see if that resonated with anyone. And because we've then done so many years work on our personal development, like over 15 years, to get ourselves to the point in our 40s where we decided, right, we're doing it, we're setting our business, we're pursuing our life's dream. We then thought, right, well, if we can help women who feel like we did over a much less shorter period, so they don't have to go 10, 15 years, and give them our tools and techniques that we've been applying every day, we can get them to the point where they can do whatever it is they want to do in their life. But we had to go through all those experiences.
Yeah.
We had to live through it, get the lessons, get the learnings, so that we were able to set up our business. We wouldn't exist if that wasn't the case, would we?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the keys, and you're starting to see this more and more, but there was a period of time where, you know, women in particular, we always had to be portrayed as perfect. We always had to fit that sort of June Cleaver, Mrs. Cunningham image.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, everything that we did, it was like the perfect Christmas picture and the holiday photos on Facebook. And there was all this perfection being shown.
Yeah.
When all you're doing is you're just seeing, you know, a moment in somebody's life, a fraction of a second.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding now that, you know, and again, I don't know if this is just because I'm being more authentic and showing those raw moments, that other people are showing them back, or there just seems to be this movement of women just saying, like, screw it, like, this sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm going to admit that this sucks and I'm struggling and I need help.
But it's still so rare. So you will be attracting those people because you're doing more of that. So they'll be gravitating to your authenticity, and seeing you stand in your power and say, screw it, gives them permission to do it as well. I think that's like the first line on our website. We're hoping by us just dropping the masks and being ourselves, it'll give permission to you to do the same. Because, you know, we have such shame about just admitting that everything's not hunky-dory, because the first thing, you know, when people will sit down, a woman will sit down and say to us, I've got a great job, I've got 2 great kids, I've got this great husband, I've got this amazing house, I go on holidays when I'm allowed to fly, but there's just something missing. And I feel really, and I know I should be happy. Straight away, we go into beating ourselves up because we're admitting that there's something missing. I always remember seeing an Oprah Winfrey show. God, it's probably like 20 years ago now, 18 years ago, where a woman actually admitted that after she'd had a baby, she wasn't jumping through hoops crazy happy. She was unhappy, she felt lonely and isolated, and she was miserable. And I remember at the time there was this huge backlash on this woman of like, you should be so grateful you can have children, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So much so that Oprah actually then did another show getting more women. She had to find women who were prepared to speak out to say that actually motherhood, not all that sometimes with a new baby. But at the time, that was like breakthrough. That was like less than 20 years ago. We still have shame and guilt and feel crap when we say as women, we're not happy, we want more. And actually, I'm prepared to own up about it. Like, there is still backlash. There's backlash on social media. People scared of being, there's always going to be somebody with an opinion. Ultimately, it comes down to what's your opinion of you? What's your opinion of your choices? And give yourself some breathing space to have those pipe dreams. Because the only difference between a pipe dream and a plan is what you actually call it. One day we had a pipe dream, the next day we had a plan because we just made a decision. We made a decision that I wasn't going to die, and Cheryl didn't want to die with a pipe dream. We'd rather die trying with a plan. and it can be as simple as that, but we don't even give ourselves permission to daydream, do we? It's like, well, it's frivolous. There's no point. I can't see how it would happen. Just can it? Like, that's what, and if we haven't got supportive partners, that's often what happens. It just gets shelved. You've got to be really careful who you share your pipe dreams with before you decide they're a plan. You've got to be really, really careful of the crew that you pick.
Definitely, because and the responses are coming from a place of positive intention, but it's fear. So what holds many of us back in life from pursuing a pipe dream or whatever it is fear, is the voice. It's trying to keep us safe. But actually, like, one of my husband's fears were, we're going to lose our house. That was his fear. And I was like, well, I just know that I would never put ourselves in that position where that would happen. But that was his major fear. So when anything small happened, the reaction comes from we're going to lose our house. And this is what happens in life for us. Like you say, if you haven't got somebody who's supportive, or ourselves, like we put all of these fears in our own way, which prevents us from even thinking about the pipe dream, or telling ourselves that it's possible for us. We just tell ourselves that that's okay for them over there, but actually that's not going to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that acknowledging you have a void in your life, but not being able to put your finger on it. There is an incredible amount of guilt associated with that, because like you said, you have, whatever you have in your life, it's the house, the kids, the husband, the job, you have all these things. And you're right. It does feel selfish when you say, but something's missing.
Yeah.
Because you are going to get the backlash from some people saying, well, you should be happy that you can have kids, or you should be happy that you have a house.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think there's that danger of comparing what somebody else's happiness is, again, going back to this checklist. And for me, actually, it took me a long time to admit that void existed.
Mm-hmm.
And making that step to create the change was extremely difficult. Some people kind of got it, but got it for the wrong reasons. And then other people had no clue what they were doing. Even my friend texted me one day and she's like, are you sure you know what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't coming from a point of criticism, because I had never actually shared the pain and the challenge and the problems that I had, because again, I was always trying to maintain that everything's happy, everything's fine, we're perfect, we're great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny now, our relationship has evolved to this point where, we tell each other so many things. And we were talking about it the other day, and she goes, I totally get why you did what you did. It makes sense now, because I understand what you were going through. But I never shared that.
Yeah.
And it was that moment that I got in the car and left was such an incredibly painful moment, because I knew that for me, for whatever reason, I would die if I didn't go.
Yeah.
But it was killing my husband.
Yeah.
What we were going through. And that is an incredibly challenging situation to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, we went through it and we are so much better for it. And things have changed, and because now I'm able to be who I really am and say, and speak from that authentic voice.
Yeah.
Everything about us is different, but different for the better.
Yeah.
But you have to go through the shit.
You've got to go through the fire. You've got to go through the fire. And I know it's not easy to do that. It's not easy. It's like Samantha says in Sex and the City, like, honey, I love you, but I love me more, right? Like, sometimes you've got to leave to get yourself straight and your own head straight, because otherwise you are doing that person that you're in a relationship with such a disservice to be faking your happiness. It's like the film, The Bridges of Madison County. It's like a real book, isn't it? To the thought of like living all that life and dying with these secrets inside, and your kids not really knowing who you were as a woman. Like that, for me, I remember watching that film so many years ago and thinking, and reading the book and thinking, I don't want to die like that. Like, I don't want to die and people think I'm one thing and I'm like this big phony, because that's not who I really am. I had to work out who I was. And that's painful for people, because sometimes you come out and you have different friendships, different relationships, but you owe it to yourself. You only have one crack in this body at this life. And to me, it became less scary of the thought of who I might lose, and more scary of thinking, I'm just going to keep going through the motions of being this person, turning up with this smile, and everyone thinking I'm this one person that really I'm not. So your work is always just to find out who you really are, what you really want, what lights you up inside. And in our experience, like more often than not, when women go through that process, invariably it improves the relationships that they have. The fear is always that it'll break everything. But from our experience, the relationships and the marriages and the, you know, with the kids, everything becomes stronger because of that process.
And that's exactly, it's helping people, and specifically women, helping women through that process. That's the basis of your entire coaching program, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Real You program is, like Cheryl said before, like, it took us 15 years. We don't want for you or anybody else to ever have to try and work that all out and read these books and decide which podcasts are going to give them that silver bullet. So it's a process. We take women on a journey, literally, of self-discovery to understand who they are, who they believe themselves to be, what they want out of life, and help them lose, shake off, drop, leave at the door any beliefs that they have about themselves that don't really serve them anymore. So they can learn how to be the woman that they feel inside, learn what that void is, how to fill it. Because the other thing is, we always have to fill it from the inside. Nothing outside, no amount of nice houses or clothes or weight loss or relationships fills whatever that void is for you. So it's about working out what the void is, how to make it feel whole again, how to make you feel happy from the inside out, and rewire all those beliefs. It's all about inner game work. And we have women who, you know, make different decisions about what they want their families to look like, different decisions about what they want their jobs to look like, different decisions about, you know, being an entrepreneur instead of, you know, working in a 9-to-5 corporate and talking about it, you know. So move countries. We've had all kinds of things be the answer to what they want to do, but you get 6 months to come and work with us, and, you know, individually or with another group of women who are going through the same thing, and give yourself that space and that breathing room away from to-do lists and gym kits and all the other stuff that we're doing as mums or aunties or whatever else we are. And we usually haven't given ourselves that for us. We've sometimes done it for university and things, but not just to find out about who we are right at our very core. It's powerful stuff, isn't it, Cheryl, when we see them like transform. And a lot of them will say to us, it's like everything's changed, but nothing's changed, because it was all inner work.
Yeah, and because the answers are always within us. It's just, we need a little help from our mirror. Donna and I are our clients' mirrors, and we can hold the mirror, but we know what questions to ask and how to guide them to find the answers that are in there. They're just waiting to come out. And that can be scary at first. You know, working with a coach, you know, can be scary, because a lot of our clients say, well, what if I don't like the person I am? What if I find out who she is and then I don't like her? That's never happened.
or what if there's nothing there? What if you work with me for 6 months and there's just nothing there? And we're like, yeah, everybody says that. It's always fine.
What if it doesn't work for me?
It will work for you. So, and it's great because we take them through, there's like 5 key steps in the journey that we take women through from a process perspective. Behind the scenes, we kind of know, we can gauge where they're at. And it is literally like the nearest thing I can give it to, like, one client launched a business this week. She'd been, you know, a senior marketing executive before this, and this week she's launched her own marketing business, and it's like giving birth. Like I am as proud of seeing her go outing herself, as she said, to the world, that she's now an entrepreneur, as I was the day that Caleb came into the world. I think it's just the most beautiful thing that she didn't know 12 months ago that was even an option, and here she is launching her own marketing business. And that happens every week with these women. It's like, it's literally like watching a miracle before your eyes. It's such a privilege.
But ultimately, the program, the Real You, is so that you, by the end of working with us, you're living life as your authentic self. You know who you are, and you're living it. Claiming it.
And that's key, because, you know, I had a friend ask, you mentioned the silver bullet. I had a friend I was chatting with, and she's like, what was that one book or that one thing that you read that created this change in your life? And for me, it wasn't anything that was on the outside. Sure, I'd read all these books and listened to all these videos and done all these things, but ultimately the change had to come from within me. And you have to do that inner work to get through to the other side.
Yeah. But there is a tipping point often, isn't there, where so a lot of women will come to us and they say, I'm really interested in working with you, and I'm not sure if it's the right time. There's never really a right time to do it, and I'll give it a year. Like for me, at my point, my tipping point, going back 16 years now, when I started doing my inner work, was that thing of, I knew I won't be here in a year. Like if this is my life in a year, I won't be here to witness it. Like it was not, I couldn't bear the thought of living another life for the life I was living. That was a very big motivator to do the work that was required, because nothing I could find out about myself was as uncomfortable as living through that moment. And I think for you, like you said, it was literally killing you being there. Like to make that decision, it was like either I drown or you drown. You've got to save yourself. You can't save somebody else who's drowning if you're drowning already.
Yeah, it is. And you guys have a lot on social media. You have all sorts of, on YouTube, you have videos and you have your own podcast. So there's a lot of resources that are out there. I'll share all of those links in the show notes, where anybody has that little feeling, that little whisper in their ear that, they need to start to look at something different. There's lots of different ways that people can get in touch with you. So I'll make sure that that's all in the show notes. And, ultimately, I'll also include the link to your program, The Real You, because, I think together, the more we are authentic, the more that we share this message and we speak up, it goes back to sort of creating that movement that we're going to start to see, more and more people getting on board and, owning their own power.
Love it.
Standing in it. I love it. Just get curious. Let's just get curious. No judgment, in support of the women like you who are out there as beacons. Let's support each other when we see it happening.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was fabulous. And I look forward to chatting with you guys again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creator.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Roller coaster. Ride, ride. Roller coaster.